When I talk to patients who have been diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer, it means that the prostate cancer has metastasized throughout their body. And understandably, there's a lot of fear and concern. But this doesn't mean that you don't have options. It means, in fact, when you've been newly diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer, you haven't had treatment yet, and we don't know how that treatment is going to affect your cancer. There are multiple treatments in prostate cancer for this stage, and today we're going to talk to Dr. Mark Scholes. He's a 30-year medical oncologist who's focused solely in prostate cancer, about his experiences, how those treatments play out, and the remissions and the cures that he's seen in stage 4 prostate cancer. When we talk about prostate cancer and people are coming into the situation being newly diagnosed, I think a lot of times, we have what we've heard about cancer, we see things in the media, and with other cancers, we hear, stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. We have that in prostate cancer, but prostate cancer, because it acts so different, there's many different types, and it is the slower growing variety of cancers, it's a very different game, it's a very different situation. And so I thought today we could cover what are the typical stages that people are reading on the internet, but really what does that mean to real life, and what other information do patients need in order to contextualize their case? Because I think as this newly diagnosed situation comes up, customizing their treatments to their particular case is so important. So can we start out with can you define what the stage 1, 2, 3, and 4, what they are?
We don't specifically use stage 1, 2, 3, 4 in prostate cancer, but I do understand why people are coming from that angle. There's over 100 types of cancer, and the 1, 2, 3, 4 system is widely used. There is a 1, 2, 3, 4 system for prostate cancer, but it's typically not the main staging system. We use what's called low, intermediate, and high risk for the newly diagnosed. Then we have relapsed, and we have metastatic disease. Just to contextualize it, let's talk about what the 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers might indicate in prostate cancer, just to help people have a context. The idea of stage 1 is something small and confined inside the origin. If it was a lung cancer, it would be confined to the lung. In a prostate cancer, it's confined to the prostate. Stage 2 means a larger tumor still confined to the prostate. Stage 3 means something that's coming out the edge of the prostate, or perhaps something that has advanced into lymph nodes right around the prostate. And then stage 4 is anything beyond that, bone metastasis or lymph nodes in more distant parts of the body. The problem, of course, is that within each of those stages, there's a lot of variability. Well, what is the grade, previous treatments that would show how well the cancer is responding, and whatnot. But in rough terms, 1, 2, 3, 4 represents those sorts of broad categories.
In previous videos, we've talked about local metastases in the lymph nodes and distant metastases. So when you're talking about lymph nodes when it comes to stage 3, is there a difference between like a pelvic versus abdominal?
Yes, that's exactly right. The pelvis, with the bony pelvis, you anatomically, the hips come off the side, then you have what you can actually feel your hip. The prostate resides in the pelvis, and lymph nodes that are in the pelvis would still be a stage 3. Lymph nodes that are above the pelvic brim, at the belly button and above, are going to be considered stage 4.
This September, we're having an in-person prostate cancer patients and caregivers conference. It's designed for you to get your questions answered by world-renowned experts, and you can find out more information at pcri.org. Also, click that subscribe button, because when you do this, it helps us out quite a lot, and it's a great way to support our channel. And if you would like to support us financially, you can do so at pcri.org/donate. Now back to my conversation with Dr. Scholes. Do the number of metastases ever affect these stages, or is it once it's past, the pelvic floor and it's, the metastases are in the lymph nodes, either in the abdominal cavities or in the bones? If it's 1 or 2 mets, would that change to, any particular stage, or you're just stage 4?
Right, and I think that's the problem with the 1, 2, 3, 4 system. In the prostate world, professionals don't usually talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, but because it's talked about with so many other cancers and patients are coming into this realm, doctors will speak in general terms to patients about this 1, 2, 3, 4 system, just to kind of give them an idea of what's going on. But within stage 4, there's some incredibly important issues. You mentioned the number of spots. That's very relevant. Whether it's in lymph nodes or bones, that's very relevant. If men have had any previous treatment, how well they've responded to that treatment is incredibly important. In fact, that may be the most important thing. So stage 4 is just this grab bag term that doesn't communicate much in the prostate world except to say, okay, it's a consequential variant of prostate cancer. But in terms of what the future is going to bring, you're going to need other information to make that determination.
How does Gleason grade play into stage 4 cancer? Because it's already metastasized, and we know that Gleason 6 does not metastasize, so we're really dealing with 7 to 9, and in rare cases 10. So how does that play out? Does that tell us any information for patients who are being diagnosed with stage 4 from the get-go?
Maybe a little bit. The whole issue with Gleason score and its great value is in men who have disease is confined to the prostate. It helps predict whether it's likely or not to go to other parts of the body. This was more important in the era where we didn't have PSMA PET scans. The scans that we used to have were so crude that it was very common for people to have disease spread around the body that wasn't detected by CAT scans and bone scans. And so all the implications of having metastatic disease were there, the potential in men that had high PSAs and high Gleason scores. But maybe it wasn't confirmed, at least initially, on scans. Now with PSMA PET scans, we're picking up the lion's share of what's out there, and when the scans are clear, we have more confidence that maybe the disease is organ confined. So the importance of the Gleason score is not as great now that we've got better scans, but it still has some relevance, just as how high the PSA is. But the most relevant factor in dealing with stage 4 disease is always how well does the disease respond to our best available treatment, which is hormonal therapy. Hormonal therapy is incredibly effective. It can induce remissions lasting more than 10 years commonly. In that context, the types of cancers that don't respond well to hormone therapy are the most serious. It's not whether they're stage 4 or not. It's whether there is a innate resistance to hormone treatment, signaling that your best available treatment isn't going to work.
So in these particular cases, when somebody's diagnosed with stage 4 from the get-go, how is the PSA typically acting?
Well, the PSA can be not that high in some low PSA producing cancers, or it can be in the thousands. We watch the PSA closely after people initiate hormone treatment. Practically all men with stage 4 disease are going to be initiating testosterone deprivation. The belief or hope is that those individuals will go into a complete remission, that their PSA will drop to less than 0.1 within 6 months of starting treatment.
When it comes to hormone therapy, in what percentage of stage 4 patients are we going to see that hormone therapy works and puts them into a remission?
Practically everybody will see some decline in PSA after initiating hormone therapy. Depending on how advanced the disease is starting off or what the biology of that disease is, easily more than 50% of men will go into what we call a complete remission. That is, their PSA becomes undetectable, less than 0.1, within 6 months or so of starting the hormone therapy.
So when we're talking about hormone therapy, we have first generation, second generation. In some cases, doctors start them on low dose bicalutamide. And so in what type of category do we see these men going on in order to get that 50% most of men getting a reduction, but maybe 50% remission, and the other men having a definite effect on their PSA?
Ever since these second generation hormonal agents came out, Zytiga came out in 2011, Xtandi, Erleada, and Nubeqa, it's been routine to not start someone with stage 4 disease on just a first-generation agent, Lupron, Trelstar, Eligard, Orgovyx, Firmagon, because we know that the combination of first and second generation together works much better. And we know from broad principles of oncology and specific trials done in prostate cancer, using effective treatment earlier in the course of therapy results over the long term in superior outcomes. In other words, you really want to go after the cancer with your best available treatments up front. You don't want to save anything in reserve unless it was too toxic, which these second generations certainly are not too toxic. The routine standard approach for anyone with stage 4 disease is to be on both a first and a second generation hormonal agent from the get-go.
So you use the words not too toxic, which is really important because I think that patients don't understand that, yes, hormone therapy does have a huge list of side effects, and they do affect people to varying degrees. Some men do very well. Some men, it is quite devastating as far as the effect that it has on their life. But when the words like too toxic come in, that means you can't stay on treatment. And we see this a lot of times where patients can't tolerate certain treatments. So how do you, kind of measure that when patients are coming to you and they're about to embark upon hormone therapy, but they're concerned about the list of side effects that are associated with it?
Well, these sorts of debates are more common in men that have disease that's still still localized in their prostate, but maybe they have a high Gleason score, and there's a concern that maybe there's going to be a micrometastatic component to the disease. And the pros and cons of the side effects versus the benefit need to be weighed and balanced and discussed to whether that individual wants to pursue hormonal treatment. When you're dealing with disease that is already stage 4, that means metastatic, we're looking at, if untreated, life-threatening cancer, and the side effects of hormone treatment tend to be quite a bit milder than what we consider with, say, something like chemotherapy. Wow, to have something that's 5 to 10 times more effective than chemotherapy and maybe 20% as many side effects as chemotherapy, that's a delight. That's a joy that we have access to such effective therapy. That's not to deny that there are side effects. There are, thankfully, resources that people can use to minimize the side effects, and using those resources makes a lot of sense. And you can make hormone therapy a much more tolerable experience with appropriate interventions. I won't go into all the details right here. But with stage 4 disease, arguments about too many side effects in something which is imminently life-threatening doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, that's a good point. I was recently talking to a friend of mine in New Jersey, and he was diagnosed with metastatic prostate cancer, Gleason 9, pretty young guy. And his main focus was, I want to be here to see my kids graduate. And yes, the hormone therapy is intense, but I really want to make sure that I am dealing with the side effects. So he started a workout program right away and started weightlifting and got some estrogen patches for the hot flashes. And he's really worked himself into a position where it's tolerable for him. It's not what he would choose. It is affects your marriage and your sex life, but he's really benefited from doing his research and figuring out how to mitigate the side effects to a certain extent. So one of the things that we hear in prostate cancer is that, if I have stage 4, a lot of times patients hear that, they get extremely scared, which is understandable. And then sometimes doctors are giving them a timeline of, well, this is typically the statistical probability of how long you're going to live based off of stage 4 prostate cancer. You're talking about situations where 50% of these men going on hormone therapy are automatically going to go into remission, and then the other ones are going to see a PSA decline, and there's other treatments that they can take. So can you talk to the patients that are maybe in this situation where maybe they are newly diagnosed with stage 4 and they are concerned about how long they have to live, what the survival rates are, and can you kind of contextualize the other treatments alongside that?
So one of the problems, of course, is that most other solid tumors, lung cancers, pancreas cancers, bone cancers, stage 4 means that almost certainly you're going to die possibly within 6 to 18 months. That's just a generality. Of course, there's a minority of people even with those diseases that can do well. There's a natural belief that prostate cancer is kind of like that, and that's certainly not the case. Predictions about how long people are likely to live that are made prior to initiating hormone treatment and seeing how well the PSA declines are amateur predictions. It would be very foolish for me to try and tell someone with stage 4 disease how long they have to live if I didn't already see how they are responding to hormone treatment. I still am very reticent to talk about how long people are going to live, even if someone has a great remission, or if let's say their PSA stops declining, which is a very worrisome sign. They may respond very well to the next line of treatment. We have 3 or 4 or 5 effective treatments that can be used after hormone therapy, and people can get spectacular responses to those as well. They're not as common and predictable as it is with hormone therapy, but they certainly can be great. I think the whole field of predicting longevity is a real problem. If you look into the literature on this and cancer in general, they find that doctors are really bad at predicting longevity until patients have become so infirm and sick that they're unable to get out of bed. Then the doctors get a little bit better at predicting longevity. That's a very extreme example. The 99% of people with metastatic prostate cancer are driving cars and going on with their lives. They're not debilitated to that degree. But as cancer gets out of control and people run out of options, there will become a time when people start to become debilitated. And at that point, you can say, we think we see the writing on the wall that the life expectancy is going to be foreshortened. But predictions prior to that doctors are just pulling numbers out of the air. And I am really disappointed when I hear these projections about you're going to live 1, 3, 2, 5, 7 years. No one has the slightest idea. I think these doctors just kind of feel intimidated by their lack of knowledge and maybe have a sense that they've got to produce some kind of an answer to these questions. And I can't tell you how many patients I've had that are so excited about how they were able to beat these dire predictions that were given to them. You know, some doctor told them they were going to live 3 years, and now it's 13 years later. I really would counsel all my doctor friends, don't go there. You're going to probably make a fool of yourself.
Thank you for mentioning that, because in multiple cases I've called you with people who have been diagnosed with, extensive disease, and they've been given these timelines, and there's a lot of emotion and fear and anxiety with the families, and you've always told me we don't know how these patients are going to do until they've had the treatment, and that's going to be the most effective way to see these things play out. And I think it's an important thing to remember for patients, because upon that newly diagnosed setting, if some doctor tells you something, they don't know how the treatment's going to affect you. They don't, everybody's so different in their genetics and biology and how things work. So I definitely think that's a great point. The other thing is that you mentioned 5 or 6 treatments outside of hormone therapy that you think, is a great lineup as far as the sequencing goes of things that can help, control the disease. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, backup treatments are different types of immunotherapy, things like Xofigo and lutetium, several forms of chemotherapy, Taxotere, Geftana, carboplatin. Patients who are facing hormone-resistant disease should have genetic testing. They can do testing of the DNA in your bloodstream that comes from the cancer, and that will sometimes give you insights, particularly if a type of medicine called PARP inhibition is going to be effective. And there's a lot of fascinating clinical research that's going on with new agents all the time. That's just to name a few. And these are things that make a real difference in people's lives. These are not just window dressing treatments. They have a potential to reverse the disease for extended periods of time. That resource, of course, is a fantastic opportunity for men that have stage 4 disease that is not responding to hormone treatment.
In previous videos, you've also mentioned spot radiation, and how many METs are you typically using spot radiation for? In what context and what effect are you seeing?
So the whole concept of oligometastatic stage 4 disease, meaning 5 or fewer spots detected on scans, has become a very hot area in the field of prostate cancer due to the advent of better scans, PSMA PET scans. One of the problems we had with the old-time scans was that we knew that if we could see something on an old-time scan, there's probably a myriad of smaller spots that we were missing. Despite that, even with the old scans, scientific literature has fairly well validated that there's an advantage to taking a beam of radiation and sterilizing those big spots. The patients who underwent that treatment did better than the people that didn't. Spot radiation typically doesn't really incur much of any side effects, and it's easy, and it does sterilize that spot. This field, however, has been totally revolutionized by better scans, because with PSMA PET scans, quite likely in many patients, we're seeing the lion's share, if not the entirety of the cancer. And if there are 2, 3, or 4 spots, a minority of these patients may even be curable with spot radiation. So the upside of being able to administer treatment to men with a relatively non-toxic treatment, in some cases in lieu of having to put them on hormone therapy, is a big upside in terms of quality of life. And we are definitely seeing extended remissions in men with oligometastatic disease that's been detected with PSMA PET scans.
The terms cure and remission, I think oftentimes for patients get a little confusing. Can you talk about the differences, and then also how many times you see patients in these particular cases go into these situations?
Well, remission we consider to be a man whose PSA is undetectable or consistently low in the 0.1 to 0.2 range after radiation, whose testosterone is fully recovered, and who isn't taking any anti-cancer therapy and is sustaining that for a period of years. That would be both a remission and a cure. People start talking about cures in people that have sustained a remission for 5 years or longer. There's still people that can fall out of remission after 5 years, but that's pretty rare. So a cure would be someone who's been in remission for more than 5 years.
And when it comes to patients in these stages where maybe they have stage 4, they have had metastatic sites, you have had multiple patients go into a remission or have a cure and have those sustainable numbers outside of 5 years?
I think this is something that's not widely known, that prostate cancer is much more amenable to this approach. It's less malignant than many other types of cancers. And I don't think the field of oncology is really prepared for how well men can potentially do with oligometastatic disease when it's treated, especially now with these new PSMA PET scans.
There are a couple resources that I'm going to share in the comment section of this video and in the description. First of all, I want to point out that Eugene Kwan is an incredible urologist from Mayo Clinic, but he works with advanced disease. We've made a playlist of all of the talks that he's given, and he walks prostate cancer patients through metastatic disease and getting them to a remission or a cure, what their options are. They are hours and hours of content that we wish every patient knew. He calls it a combat manual, and it's really a way to combat metastatic disease and prostate cancer, but it's also a way of arming yourself and empowering yourself with a lot of information so that you can know your treatment options and understand the latest and greatest combinations that we are seeing when it comes to fighting advanced disease. So I'm going to link that again in the description, in the comment section below that video. I think it's very important to watch it. Another thing that Dr. Schultz talked about is spot radiation, so we're going to share some videos through also the comment section there, and combination therapy, because when it comes to metastatic activity, most of the time they're going to want to treat you with radiation or chemotherapy or hormone therapy together, and it's good to know not only what the combination is, but how to deal with the side effects in combination with each other. And so the more information you have, it just helps with your mental health, your emotional health, but it also helps kind of guide the conversation with your doctor. If you hear an option on this channel, but you don't have your doctor presenting that to you, you can ask him why and find out whether or not it's an option for you. Another thing that Dr. Schultz mentioned is, genetic testing. There's genetic testing and genomic testing, so there's the difference between testing, your own biology and then testing the tumor. Both of these are important when it comes to advanced disease because you want to find out if certain things, like certain immunotherapies, possibly Yervo or Optivo, is an option for you. And I have seen patients where maybe they had extensive disease, they're no longer sensitive to hormone therapy, and they have gotten these tests and been able to take immunotherapies, and they've had really great responses. So we're going to go ahead and share that information as well, and we'll link that again in the comment section or in the description of this video. I just want to encourage you. Stage 4 cancer is intense. Stage 4 prostate cancer is specific. It's important to know, as I said, the genetic, testing and the genomic testing to find out what all of your options are. But time and time again, I have talked to patients who have either dealt with prostate cancer as a chronic disease, they've gotten it under control, it comes back, they get it under control again, or maybe they've gone into a remission and possibly a cure. Hormone therapy works for a lot of patients. In fact, I had a personal friend of mine where he took a first-generation hormone therapy. He was 52 years old. He had Gleason 9 metastatic prostate cancer, and that one hormone therapy worked for him for 25 years. Now, I don't want to downplay the side effects of hormone therapy at all. We have many videos talking about how to mitigate those side effects and how to deal with them. I understand that it's intense. The loss of sexual interest is quite devastating, especially for a lot of men, and it's a hard situation. It affects relationships. It affects so much. It's the physical, the mental, and emotional toll. We're in no way, shape, or form downplaying that, but we want to talk to you about optimizing your survival while still taking care of your quality of life. Now, quality of life is a term that is often used in, clinical trials and in prostate cancer papers and our website and all sorts of videos we talk about. But what I want you to think about is what quality of life means to you. What do you want to prioritize? Do you want to prioritize maybe you have an activity like maybe you golf or maybe you surf? You want to keep doing that. Maybe you just want to not have hot flashes at work. Maybe you want to spend more quality time with your children or your partners. What I would do is think about what your priorities are as far as quality of life goes and hold them as equal as to survival, and think about, I want to survive. I want to live as long as I possibly can, but I also want to have a good quality of life in the meantime. And certain men have, certain priorities and certain men have others. Sometimes sexual interest is not a big deal to a group of men, and sexual interest is a big deal. So it's important to learn about what you need to do to take care of penile health through the process of hormone therapy. Do you need to talk to your doctor about getting on Cialis or Viagra, maybe do an injection therapy to make sure that you don't lose potency? And in certain instances, when you see these men no longer be on hormone therapy, they've taken care of their body and they've taken care of their mechanisms, and that really helps them over time when they come off of hormone therapy to get back to some sense of normalcy. As you think about quality of life, write it down, prioritize it. Talk to your doctor, talk to the nursing staff, talk to anybody as a caregiver or a supportive person in your life. Talk to support groups about it. Because a lot of times, when it comes to quality of life, there are measures that can be taken to help preserve that and take care of it. And it's just important because I think it also helps you with your drive to live. If you have a life you enjoy, it's just going to make the whole process of fighting prostate cancer in general a lot more tolerable. Please reach out to support. I'm going to list support groups in the description in the comment section, and I want you to reach out to people. And you can even reach out to our helpline. These are prostate cancer patients who have been on hormone therapy. They've had metastatic disease, and they are alive here today. One of them had Gleason 9 prostate cancer, and he went on a clinical trial, and now he's off hormone therapy. It's just important that you have somebody to talk to, and they're a great resource, so you can contact them at pcri.org/helpline. Please remember, you're not alone. You are so important, and we hope you have a great week.